coming online here with all of you. I can see you guys jumping in as the participant numbers go shooting up. Thank you all for joining, a couple hundred already on. We are thrilled to have everybody coming in from around the world. Feel free to throw in a hello from wherever you are. Give us a sense of your location in the chat there if you want to throw those in. In addition, we have a Q&A screen. Wow, those numbers are still shooting up. We're just hitting 500 now. Good job, everybody. Q&A, if you've got questions that you would like our panel to answer as you get to meet some of our participants in the journey of intrinsic health, you'll be using the Q&A selection there at the bottom of your screen. But otherwise, happy for you to say hello on the chat and let everybody know who you are, where you're joining from. It's always fun to see a global community coming together. I feel like this is the IT version of a mycelial network developing in the soil of humanity here every time we do one of these networking calls where we start to see like-minded, similarly vibrating people coming together. Here we go: Seattle, Switzerland, Honolulu, North Carolina, Maine, Minneapolis, San Diego, Pittsburgh, Belgium, Arizona. I love it. Germany, hello. Canada, New York, Denver, Colorado, close to my home. Very good. Bellingham, nice. A lot of beautiful spots here. New York, lots of New York coming through there. Vancouver, Canada, thank you. Netherlands, Colorado, but that was a funny combination there. I haven't seen that coming together. Philippines, hello. You are part of my origin story. Thank you for joining from the Philippines. London, UK, Boise, Idaho. Look at you guys all jumping in. I love it. This is exciting to see everybody coming together. This is exactly what we're here to talk about, is the impact of connection of humans. And this is really my origin story, I think, as a physician. I came out of a background that was heavy in kind of mechanics and engineering. I was not a very good student growing up because I was far more interested in being under cars in a garage than I was in a classroom, and didn't find much success in classrooms in my junior high school years. I was at best a distracted student and was mostly trying to get back to the auto mechanics or maybe onto a ski slope growing up in Colorado. And that was kind of my identity. If you'd asked me at 15, 17 what I was going to do with my life, I was going to be probably a mechanic and then maybe an airplane mechanic at one point, and then I decided, well, maybe I'll go into robotics and engineering as kind of, pushing myself to some sort of academic application of my joy for turning wrenches and building things. And then in the classic way that teenagers do, I had my heart broken and decided to get my life back on track. I needed a year off, so I delayed my entry into my engineering program. And shortly after, meaning like a number of hours after making the decision to take a year off, my aunt called, who I'd rarely talked to over the course of my life, called and invited me to the Philippines to work in an international group of midwives birthing babies and doing some prenatal checkup kind of care there in the outside of Manila, Philippines. And that changed my career. And that's why I'm here with all of you, is because what I found in the Philippines was the extraordinary magic of humans connecting over the topic of life. I was so enthralled by the intrinsic capacity of a life form to take hold and have a commitment of resilience and regeneration, and against all odds express a desire for life. And so I was seeing these infants born often very premature because of malnutrition and other things. We were often birthing in dirt floored tin shacks that were just pounded together with a few rusty nails, and were running rainwater underneath the walls and through the living room, the little river, and just a mess of human sprawl outside of the Manila, Philippines, which was one of the most contaminated sites on the planet. The amount of lead contamination in the air. My uncle got lead poisoning just in the first few years of living there, just from being on the buses every day back and forth to Manila. Just by breathing the air. So just a toxic place. And yet I was seeing these babies born with this extraordinary capacity for resilience. And I was so amazed by their ability to not only be alive, but to express joy. And I got to, play endless games of soccer with these little children in the Philippines that didn't have enough money for a soccer ball, and so they would collect plastic bags, as they do in so many parts of the developing world, and they would tape balls of plastic bags together until they had something akin to a soccer ball, and they would play soccer endlessly with those plastic bag balls. And I was just so amazed by the joy that was expressed in these humans in these seemingly abject, states of kind of colorless poverty, just so sad and disgusting on one level, juxtaposed with this pure sense of joy and exuberance of the children coming out of this. You then contrast that with me coming back and deciding I needed to actually be a good student for a couple years so that I could have grades that could get me into medical school and things like this. And I did a Spanish major in pre-med. And the journey into Western medicine was shocking because I thought I was going to go into OBGYN because I had such an affinity for this birthing process, it felt like, and was shocked when I found out that we were having such horrific outcomes in fancy hospitals in the United States. So I was training at Denver General, which was known as kind of the knife and gun club in the early 90s, and all of this, just a lot of gang violence, a lot of drug abuse, a lot of abject poverty of a completely different sort in the United States. And I was seeing far worse outcomes in neonatal death, neonatal disease presentations, drug abuse, addiction. And I was just shocked that somehow the poverty of the Philippines was having better results on dirt floors than we were in these fancy hospital systems, spending tens of thousands of dollars per day on these women who were coming in toxic labor states and things like this due to complete breakdown in their health from their environment. So that was the origin story of it. I then had to go down a 20-year journey, basically 17 years of Western medicine, thinking that I could find a technology that would get us out of this trap of chronic disease and get us towards something like health. And so I found my way into endocrinology and metabolism because of my desire to find something that was more close to a root cause solution. And ultimately, I found myself in cancer research, developing nutritional compounds to be adjunct to chemotherapy regimens, where I was finding that if we gave nutrients to cancer cells, we were more effective at killing them than giving poisons to those same cells. And so that was kind of my aha moment, taking us towards the opportunity to birth this course. Ultimately left the university in 2010. I did all my postdoctoral decade of work at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. And in that work, I kind of began to realize that I had been, over those 17 years, trained far from my original roots of understanding and being witness to and in awe of this intrinsic resilience and regeneration that I saw in those children in the Philippines. I had completely lost touch with that. And it was a far-flung idea in my head. It wasn't part of my daily narrative of who I was. If you'd asked me, 14 years ago what I was chief resident at the University of Virginia, faculty, research, blah, 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 award-winning researcher in chemotherapy. And I would have never mentioned the Philippines. I would have never mentioned, babies, because I had forgotten about that whole story on so many levels. I had been so duped into this possibility that I could innovate, technology and get some sort of patented, pharmaceutical to be the best next thing for this war on cancer. 2010 really, was my complete collapse of that identity. 2008 was starting to be cracks in the foundation of that. And that was largely coming out of my realization that we were chasing symptoms in our war against diabetes, obesity, cancer, autoimmune disease. And we were seeing literally every year worse numbers of population health. We were seeing shortening of lifespan for the first time in the United States in a couple hundred years. We were seeing, this chronic disease prevalence that had never been witnessed at any time in human history emerging at the very same time that we were supposed to be doing the most advanced, medicine ever practiced in the world. And so that was really what led to this schism within myself of like, who am I? What am I here to do? What did I just spend that 20 years to really go down? And decided nutrition was the base. And so nutrition became the foundation for launching Revolution Health Center in rural Virginia, a food desert in Virginia. There's really not a single quality grocery store. Most people are shopping out of gas stations in this rural Virginia area. and to find, the obesity rates, the diabetes rates, the cancer rates, everything else there, depression, being a huge piece of that crisis there, with a lot of suicidality, a lot of fourth and fifth generation poverty coming out of Central Virginia there. That was my retraining grounds as a physician, and no longer a pharmaceutical technician, but really a physician who learned again to be a healer, I think, at a deep level. And when I say that I became a healer, that was me healing myself. And what I came to realize is I couldn't heal anybody else, but I could heal myself. And I had a lot of healing to do. I had become pretty toxic as a biology due to decades of poor sleep quality, poor nutrition, working in hospitals, low vitamin D levels, not working out well. I had become, a toxic pool myself, just because of my dedication to, this service over self kind of model that we are given as not just physicians, but as parents, as community members. We're all taught to serve at the cost of ourselves. And so this is really, a journey for myself, finding my way back to me. And I'm still on that journey. And I am so blessed to be surrounded by people like the panel that you're going to meet today. I'm so blessed to be surrounded by staff like is on today with you as well. And I'm incredibly blessed to have a global community that has developed around the many, many projects that have come out of my life over the last decade, that have helped me see myself differently with each passing week and month. And I've begun to metric my own value for myself, for my spiritual well-being, for my sense of participation in the humanity as a whole, much differently. And for that, I have found great sense of joy and a great deep sense of purpose that I was really fundamentally lacking at the University of Virginia and other places in my life, other chapters of my life, where I had this almost skin crawling need to go find what I was supposed to do and didn't know how to get there. And it turned out to be something that was not on the horizon, but was actually deep inside of me. And so I had to turn that arrow around from looking outward for my solutions and my purpose to turning that arrow inwards to find my wellness and my purpose within me. And that is why we call this course Journey of Intrinsic Health. And so what you guys are seeing, and thank you all for jumping on, appreciate all 800 of you that are on right now. What we're seeing is the opportunity for us to not just see one person heal, but see a humanity heal itself. And we're going to do that through an endogenous, inside journey. And so we're really creating an inside job event here when we look at the Journey of Intrinsic Health. And so we built this over a 10-year period in my clinic, and I want you all to know that this was not like my brainchild. This was the result of brilliant multidisciplinary team that came around me, led by Spirit, which is interesting. Like, I never put out a single marketing ad for Revolution Health Center in Scottsville, Virginia. It would have been ludicrous to try to use a marketing tool. It was all word of mouth. And within 6 months of launching that clinic, we had people traveling in from all over the country, from India. Like, I was so mind blown over what was happening in this literally a plumbing building that my son and I renovated into something that was slightly akin to a professional space. But that little clinic in the middle of nowhere was attracting people from all over the world. And what we quickly realized is not only was it the practitioners who got attracted to this project without me going to look for them, it was the patients that got attracted to that spot to become part of that team. And I can tell you, after 17 years in academic medicine and education, I got a far better education over the last 12 years from my patients than I ever did in all of that medical training, because ultimately the patients have showed me 10,000 other journeys into self and into healing, which when we talk about healing, we're really talking about cure, right? We're not talking about Band-Aids, which you would get from anything like Western medicine would offer, but also what functional medicine and some of these kind of new alternative medicines that have cropped up recently, they're all doing symptom management. They kick the Western medicine doctor off the stool and say, oh, they're trying to give you drugs. And then they sit you down and say, not only do you have diabetes, obesity, and all this, you also have chronic adrenal fatigue, and they make up all these other words of things and diseases you have. You have chronic regional pain syndrome, and that's your problem. And oh, you have chronic Lyme disease. Even though you test negative for Lyme disease, you definitely have Lyme disease. So I mean, it's almost this ludicrous state of labeling stuff that doesn't even make sense scientifically at this point. And yet we're loading all of you on all of us with these levels and levels of terminology and seeming exogenous attack on our systems. And it's weakened our vibration as individuals to the point where we can't heal. And so that's the journey of Intrinsic Health, was this multidisciplinary team coming around a group of patients that were self-motivated to find solutions within themselves rather than continue to rely on external input for their health journey. And so to that end, we were able to map this 8-part journey that really looks at the 8 fundamental foundation blocks of how does a single human cell that would then incorporate into a single human body find its foundation of health. And then how does that biologic system vibrate to this energetic system that we would call a soul or energy field, or whichever way you want to look at it. But there's this energy field that animates this biologic, meat suit that you're walking around in. And we are intrigued that the very underpinnings of the biology speak to another level of intelligence in this energy field, that it would be perhaps a soul that is mapping out your life journey in such a beautiful way, such that there actually have been no mistakes in your life. Everything that has happened to you has put you on the path towards a perfect journey. And so the first thing that we love doing on this journey of intrinsic health is giving you the opportunity to look back on your life without judgment. Look back on your own path without the guilt trip. Look back on your children's journey without the guilt trip, and simply say, that's happened. That's the backdrop of this moment. And my passion right now as an individual, as much as whatever I can contribute to a team of healers at this point, is the possibility of being completely me this second. And when I embody me right now, I feel like I can tear apart mountains. I feel like I have so much energy flowing through me that I can transmute anything negative in my environment, my own abusive nature in my head, the way I beat the shit out of myself, the way I take down my own sense of confidence in a split second. I can transmute that into something beautiful in the form of grace, in the form of forgiveness, in the form of creativity, which is such a powerful energy vibration, and ultimately my capacity to witness beauty. And when I see beauty, I can experience love. And if I am having a hard time loving myself, it's because I stopped looking for my own beauty and I started metricing my own self-value on output. I'm not as productive as I should doing this. I'm not doing enough for my friends or my family or this or that. And then I get all berserk in my head and I weaken my vibrational effect, and then I'm kind of a bummer to hang out with. If I shift that, if I transmute that, and I come into myself in this moment, and this is me, and I am Zach, and this is the energy I carry, and it's okay. Everything's okay. And if I come into that level of confidence, right now, all of my skin is buzzing. I can feel electricity within me. And that's my own journey of intrinsic health. And I want to welcome to the stage here a couple people who have been through this 8-week course to give you some reflections on how they came to trust something called Journey of Intrinsic Health. Why would they choose something like that? And then what's happened in their bodies and their minds and their spirit as they've gone through the course. So very glad to have you guys with us to this global community all over the world. I'm very excited to introduce you to Gary Simmons first. Gary, give us a little bit of snapshot from Baltimore, Maryland, and give us a sense of how you came to be in your station in life and how you came to join this course. Yeah, you're working on unmuting yourself. That's good work.
Okay, there we go. Forgot I had to do that. All right. Yes. So thank you, Zach. That was really beautiful. I've probably seen 40 or 60 or 80 videos where you're being interviewed, and I hadn't heard that entire origin story as you told it today. So thank you for that. It was I kind of felt buzzing just listening to you. So I'm 68 years young. I have the distinction of being the father of 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls, perfect nuclear family that's exploded. And my youngest is 24, so don't worry. There's no crying babies in the house. So I've been on a journey for since a diagnosis in 2005 that said I had very high triglycerides, high risk for stroke. I had actually something similar to you, Zach. I had spent 30 years in the mission field in India and Philippines and China, doing what I thought was good work, trying to. But I got, I had kids and I needed to take care of them. And when I got back to the States, I was diagnosed with all these things and leading up to like a really high coronary calcium score and all this fear the medical system was putting into me. But from that first diagnosis, I intuitively went to look for holistic and alternative solutions rather than taking prescription drugs. So omega-3 fish oil and CoQ10 and all these things. So I started a dietary supplement company. I didn't like the way I was treated when I called into those places and tried to be upsold to a lot of other things. So I wanted to do it a different way and take care of the older folks, the 80-year-olds and the 90-year-olds who may need this type of support. And so the diagnosis kept going on until the point that I couldn't get those blood numbers right. And then I started watching Zach videos all over the place through the pandemic and all this stuff going on. And everything you said was like what I was thinking and could not express the way you expressed. And I think the high point for me, the real peak, was that Rich Roll broadcast where he took that 10-minute clip where you talked about what's the ultimate outcome of all this, the sixth extinction event, and he called it the best monologue ever. Just that beauty of what life is, what death is, and that we're part of the same. It's the same function, we're alive until we're dead. And when we're dead, we're really alive. And it was so beautiful. I've shared it with all my kids. I've shared it with my 87-year-old mom, just to reinforce her that there is beauty to life, that there's nothing to be feared, which is a great thing. And so, as a health coach and being in the dietary supplement field, I took course after course after course, integrative nutrition, functional medicine for a year, all these different modalities. And by the time the journey of intrinsic health was just starting, and I had called the M Clinic and I had spoken, wanting to go down there to get assessed. And I wanted somebody to tell me I'm going to be okay. That's what I was after. Like, tell me I'm not a fool to believe in the power of who we really are, and not to believe all those numbers necessarily and all that sort of stuff. So right at that time, I got an email with an invitation to the Journey of Intrinsic Health, and I didn't jump on it. I lunged as fast as I could to get into the program. And I went into the coaching side of the program, and I'm really glad I did it. It's just the community. So Zach, as you can tell, has a lot of spirit and power and light and life, but there's thousands of little Zachs, I'll include myself in that, in the community, or hundreds at least, if not thousands. And so becoming part of this 8-week journey was really cool. And I learned a lot. And I have to, I guess, remind people that this is a year's journey, really. I mean, with access to the material. And our group, we stuck together after the 8 weeks was over, and we're still meeting every week for 90 minutes. And we're still doing the work. We're still going through the modules again and again, and to help support each other and, find that conclusion that we're looking for, that we are love, that we are a miracle. And that there's hope. There's hope to this whole story. It's not a dead end street. So I think that kind of sums it up.
That's beautiful. You've had so much depth in the industry of nutrition and things like that, and I certainly cover a lot of material there, and some of our other practitioners that are involved in the course cover some of that content. was there any differences in this course versus some of the other ones you've taken, or was it presented in a way that was more interactive? What was your experience with that?
I tell you, you just turned everything on its head.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah.
Everything I thought I believed, there's this, I think where I hit the wall with Western medicine was when I met a cardiologist who would not let me say one word. He just wanted to tell me what was wrong with me. And he knew already what was wrong with me because he had seen 100 other people like me, my age group, baby boomer, whatever. And the concepts that you bring to light, it's that quote that the more we know we don't know. Like we're scratching the surface when we think we know something, and really the only thing we're revealing to ourselves is what a humongous universe this is of knowledge and truth and love and joy. So I guess for the science stuff that you share is, there's some geeky stuff that I really enjoy, I love, but really the practice of, there's just that one word, intrinsic, is so powerful to me. And I think it took me a few weeks to actually catch the grasp of that one word, and that the answer is inside here, it's inside me. And yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. I think that my joy is seeing your joy as a community. You guys are having a different result than most of the programs that I've ever attended as an attendee, or programs that I've taught in the past at the universities and things like that, where I think that when we move into a didactic mode of I'm just going to give you a bunch of information, it's actually disempowering. It actually often has the opposite effect than you would hope, because you're like, oh my God, I don't even understand 90% of this. I don't even have the language. And so you go away thinking, I got to learn all this stuff so that I can become healthy. And it's been my joy to be able to start to communicate differently, where it's like, okay, I'm going to say some words here. Don't freak out about the words. Please don't even concentrate on the words. It's going to be between my words where you're holding space together. I'm actually going to distract you for a moment, your human brain, with all these words. Meanwhile, my soul and your soul are going to commune for a moment and do something really radically important that we don't even understand. And that's how I feel about this course as it's come to emerge. The one that's now on the market is our 6th iteration over a 7-year period. And so it took us a while to be able to learn how to produce content that what didn't feel overwhelmingly didactic. And I really appreciate, Gary, your description of your journey into, the science part is all good. I like geeking out, but my God, we get together 90 minutes every week, long after the course is done, because we want to learn how to get to the love part. How do we actually live a life of beauty and love? So that's beautiful. I'm so grateful for that experience you've had.
Yeah, I'll wrap up my little piece by saying that about 3 years ago, an affirmation welled up inside me. I love my life. So I love my life became my daily, and it was a feeling. It wasn't always the words. It was this feeling of, this is a great place to live, this planet. And in the course, one of the transformations I went through, I had a lot of transformations, but one of them was to actually take that I love my life, like my life's out here, and take it to, I love who I am. I love me. I respect who I am and what I do and what I stand for. And that is what the course did for me. And there's no monetary value to that.
Thank you, Gary. That's beautiful. Susan Teton Campbell, I want to welcome you to the stage. Thank you, Gary. We'll bring you back on for the Q&A. You guys who are just joined more recently, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you have questions for the panelists or for myself as we move on, go ahead and type them into the Q&A. If you want to just say hi to the group and let everybody know where you're out in the world, type something in the chat to introduce yourself. But do throw in your questions on the Q&A, and we'll try to come back to those to get at least some of those answered by the end of it. But Susan Teton, so great to have you with us from Maui. Give us an idea of who you are and how you got to be here.
Well, thank you so much. And Gary, that was a great share. I had no idea you had 10 children. Wow. I just couldn't agree with everything you said more. I lived on the island of Maui for 17 years, but prior to that, in most of my adult life, until I was, in I guess my late 40s, I just was searching for a career that was meaningful to me. I jumped from one thing to another, which was fun. And, it wasn't a bad thing. But I fell in love with food in 1990. And when I read John Robbins' book, Diet for a New America. And I got so turned on that I had a role in our environmental issues. And that launched me into a career ever since then. I am a professional foodie. That's what I call myself because for a long time I worked on our large international programs, the Healthy School Lunch Program. And I worked with doctors across the country and environmentalists. And I was in heaven. I got to learn so much about food and the environment. And then I really learned about soil and how we grow our food. And I was in this macro world and I went down to the micro world. And I kind of at times as I changed through these careers, I didn't know what to do with myself. And I finally decided after I heard so many people say to me, I really hear you, like all the geeky stuff. I really hear you, but I don't know what to do with vegetables, or I don't know what to do. So I took my career into the kitchen and started teaching people how to eat. And I found that, that was a wonderful way to turn people onto their health, because there's a frustration, I think, that happens for many of us coaches and teachers. And that is when we start to teach about the environment and soil and desertification and water pollution and all of these things, this is outside of us. It's too big for people. It's out there somewhere, rather than really in us. And therefore, the self-care choices, like all the things that we're taught to do and all the doctors' books we've read and all the diet books, self-care becomes drudgery and one more thing to do in our busy lives. And even myself, I started to somewhat lose my own way. But for me, before that, I found that when you really encompass and really understand the environmental world and the natural world and how we need to live to be aligned with it, when you dive into that knowingness and that connection, there's this beautiful expanded consciousness, number one, but there's this intimacy. And this beautiful intimacy that brings you to a place of acting from a place of honor and privilege and excitement rather than drudgery. It's not outside yourself. You're really this integral part of it. And I have been drawn to Zach's work for several years, especially when he started lecturing on GMOs. I don't know how I missed this course over the last few years, because the minute it came through my email feed, I just went boom, just like Gary. There was no hesitation whatsoever. And much of the reason, to get down to my personal self, was that, I crept into my 70s a few years ago. And definitely, when we're aging, and every one of us out there is, every single one of us, that we have more and more challenges. I mean, I thought we'd make changes 30 years ago when I was this active, environmentalist, and there haven't really been very many changes. Things are a lot worse in areas. Yet at the same time, there's this bubbling up, this evolution of humans like ourselves, all on this call, thirsty and desiring knowledge and purpose and a place in the world. And what I have found from the course, particularly, and I kind of felt like, to be a little bit arrogant here, maybe, is that I kind of felt like I knew the territory very well. But little did I have a language. I didn't have a language for it. And this is what I have learned from not only Dr. Zach, as I like to call him, is this beautiful language to express things that I sometimes stumbled over, because again, it was outside of ourselves. And I think there's so much of an imprint. There's so many doctors, and there's so many fields, and there's so much communication coming, that I had even fallen into the trap of trying to pick something outside myself to combat or to heal or change my own signs of aging and my own areas of kind of falling apart or dealing with an older body. And so the course, when I jumped on it, little did I know that I got to be into it for an entire year. That was just the coolest thing. But I did learn a new language, and I learned some incredible protocols that I did not know. And I decided that I would just share with you the hydration, not so much the protocol, but the whole journey that Dr. Zach took us through and his team to support us was the knowledge of water. Water to me, and I think to so many people, for instance, is this, we get our 8 glasses in a day, or we get our glass of water with our lemon or lime juice and a little salt. And a lot of us know to do that. A lot of us don't. But there's so much more to water and who it is and how it reacts in the body. I mean, this is 70% of our body. And this alone was such an awakening to me. And to really embody that in a way that I have a deeper connected relationship with it, it just really turns me on. It gives me a greater purpose and sense of where I am and who I am. And I think it's vital to our future right now. We need to really know who we are. And what do I mean by that? I think that we have power beyond anything that we realize. And I've had the opportunity to experience this even in the course with the support, because I've had some days where I didn't think I could get on with them. And I had some big jobs that I had to show up for. And I decided one morning the other day when I started to cancel something, I decided, you know what, I can do this. I'm a much greater, powerful source than I realized. And I just need to change my mind. And therein lies the other aspect of it, is like not just who we are, but where we are. And when we really align with the natural world and start to really have that intimate connection with it, it's self-care becomes a joy. It just becomes a joy and a natural way of living, like Gary said and Zach said too. It's just a beautiful existence. And the course, what I loved about it is, well, first of all, we have eight weeks together with our group and our coach. And that was incredible because we got to try things out. And sometimes, you don't understand a word that Dr. Zach says, but, but you're elevated afterwards and you don't even know why. And that's good enough for me. But we would be able to discuss it and get support for it, because we all do stumble and fall, and we need support. We need this connective tribe, so to speak, because we are going to stumble and fall, and we are going to question. And then we want to celebrate when we rise and shine, and we have each other there to do that, which even perpetuates any kind of new action or new way of being really in the world. It just helps us to support that and deepen it into ourselves and our frequency.
Beautiful.
And so, yeah, so that who we are, and then where we are. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. It was about the course too. Little did I know that we got to stay together for an entire year. Well, this is super exciting for me. Not so much for me personally, but on a global issue or a societal issue, which I deeply care about. We every time we meet, we just get on a Zoom call all together, and like Zach said earlier, these incredible people, all these, or was it Gary, all these little mini Zachs, have the opportunity to explore, and none of us have lived tomorrow yet, and so we have this opportunity to connect deeply and with a playful, joyous attitude as we continue to create. And we don't know what's going to come out of it in the next few months, but we have this opportunity. And not only is it our group, but it's around the world. This is extremely exciting to me, because so many courses that we take, we get all this information, then it's over. This is not over. This is just going to keep going. And the attitude within this group is just that we're going to just keep exploring. We're going to expand naturally, playfully. We're going to connect. We're going to dream and learn from each other. And so aside from all the protocols and the how-tos, we get this whole element of expansion that I'm just really enjoying. I'm thrilled about it.
That is beautiful. Thank you so much for those perspectives. For those of you who are not familiar with the program now comes with an app that you can download to participate in the community, and that app connects you through like interest and other ways to this greater community of hundreds or thousands of people, as Gary was talking about there. And that runs in perpetuity in the sense that we want these communities to be self-organizing. And I'll reflect a little bit at the end on like what's happened in my life over the last decade as I came to trust that nature does self-organization, and that we need to shift out of the mode of doers that need to go do something to create the future we want here. We need to become the human beings rather than doings. And in the human being part, we become magnets for manifestation, where all of us finding our soul purpose can fit into each other's visions in these synergistic fashions to create these vibrant communities that Susan Teton is talking about there. So Susan, I love that. I'm so glad you're engaged with us. It gives us a great sense of excitement to see, some of you who've been through these huge careers of your own, approaches to health coaching and nutrition and all these things that you and Gary have done, and now reinventing yourselves for this next chapter of more intense, community engagement, perhaps, and other things that can come along. I'm just thrilled to have you guys, going through the coursework and coming out the other side to be part of that million fractals of humanity that can be the sparks to start the future that we all want to go on. So that is an incredible journey. So both Gary and Susan participated in our group coaching, which is 6 to 8 people per group. And you meet weekly for the 8 weeks. And that journey is a really exciting way in which you can engage with that coach. And one of the powerful things that y'all can reflect in as we get to the Q&A here is around the opportunity to see other people transform through this work. And so that's one of my favorite things about the group coaching. We also have one-on-one coaching, the ultimate experience, where you get that deep dive looking into your own life and you have that one-on-one coaching experience to really see how does the rubber hit the road for you. And for some of you, that's just a personality type. And for some of you, perhaps there's health challenges and other things in your life that will benefit you to have more of the one-on-one care as you go through the program. But even as you're going through the one-on-one care, you still have the Journey of Intrinsic Health community via the app to engage with, and you now are connected to people that are coming to see the world similar to what you're coming to see yourself as. So that's a beautiful journey. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Susan Teton. Welcoming to the stage here, Courtney Contos. Courtney, you have been around in my life for years now, and I'm just thrilled that you joined our Coach's Journey, which is our coach training certification program. And I would love for you to give a little background of your beautiful career and where you are at in the world right now, and how come this course has become part of your journey.
Beautiful. So excited to be here. I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, you sound great.
So yes, I've been knocking on your door for many, many years. And right now I'm here in Florida and new to Florida, only been here about 3 weeks, thanks to a interesting, fun, another opportunity of growth, moving from Vermont to here. It's a fun story, maybe it'll pop in. But I've been in service. I think I was born here to be of service. I came from Chicago, a family of Greek entrepreneurs, restaurant owners. If you saw the movies Ferris Bueller Day Off or the Blues Brothers, that famous French scene was in my father's restaurant. And I grew up being in service, in hospitality. And then I became a chef, and for 29 years taught people how to cook. And that was what I thought my purpose was. And it was for a long time, but 12 years of that piece, I was in chronic pain, and I was labeled rheumatoid arthritis, and you will spend the rest of your life in a wheelchair. And somehow I knew that wasn't going to be my story. I didn't want that to be my story. And with a lot of hope and perseverance and a lot of pain and suffering, I found a way out. And right around when we met, I was having my foot rebuilt so that I could walk again, because the rheumatoid arthritis or whatever it was had eaten up my whole foot. So I chose to have a major foot rebuild. And the day of my surgery, January 22nd, it was 3 years ago, was the day the course started, the Journey of Intrinsic Health. And it was just such beautiful timing because I was launching out on a new me, a new purpose. Like I called it On Purpose Part 2. I had just decided to close my cooking school after years of teaching, after this beautiful community I built, to help others because I was on a health journey and I was seeing results, and I had reversed the RA and I just had this piece to fix the foot. And I knew that so many people had helped me, and that these health journeys are very emotional, and community is vital to it. Like you need a tribe, you know, because you really, it takes a lot to go on these health journeys sometimes. So I had just had this foot rebuilt. I was going to be in a wheelchair for 6 months intentionally, not because the doctor said it's going to be the rest of my life. And the course starts, the course that Gary and Sue Teton had taken, and I went through it and was like so moved. And there's one little moment where in the Journey of Intrinsic Health 8-week course, you are asked to write down your limited beliefs, what's holding you back, your diagnosis, and go burn it under the stars in prayer. And I'm in a wheelchair in Vermont, and I'm like trying to do this course so well, and follow along. And so my sweet husband, no problem. He built a bonfire in the backyard. There's snow everywhere. A friend dropped a sled off. I wrapped myself up in a blanket, elevated my foot with my robe, the cord from my robe that I'd been, I needed a way to keep my foot elevated because I just had surgery. And we pulled out there, and I was holding my foot, and I had written everything down, and I burned it. I burned it all. I let go of it. And it's a really big goosebump moment for me. I'll never forget it. And since then, I take pain-free steps. I no longer have rheumatoid arthritis. I don't have any of those labels. And that journey, learning about gut health, learning about how to be on purpose, and not to be afraid of who I was becoming, because I was this, one person, and now I'm going to become a board certified health coach and help other people. And so it's just a really moving journey. And that led me to, after I completed the course, now what? This can't end. And so for years, I was emailing Jen, your beautiful wife, saying, hey, is there anything I can do to help? How can I help? I want to be of service. And then, about last January or so, a couple months ago, she said, I have a course. It's going to be perfect. It's the Journey of Intrinsic course for health coaches. And I just like Gary and Sue Teton, I was like, oh, I'm in. And so the course, is for coaches. It's 4 months long. And what is happening in there is a powerful community showing up on purpose, being really vulnerable, being really open, diving into the 8 points of intrinsic health and learning how to communicate and really inspire others. And it's a powerful community, and I'm grateful to be a part of it. And these health journeys for all of us. And you said to me one time, you don't transform once. And because I had felt like, oh, I'm healed, right? I had this moment, and you really put me in my place. And I always remembered that, this is not just one transformation. You're going to have multiple transformations. And recently I was exposed to mold, and I never thought I would be one of those people that's you have to move, get rid of everything you own, and start over. So that's what happened a couple months ago. And I'm so grateful to just be on purpose and realize that that's all stuff, you don't need all that stuff, that I choose health, and that the body wants to heal. I think that that's the most amazing thing that I always go back to over and over, is the body wants to heal. And with using these 8 points, if we can clear the path for it, it just takes over. And that's what's just so amazing to me. It's disease or wellness happens one decision at a time. So we all have the power to transform. And thanks for giving me this moment here to share and connect with you all.
It's so beautiful. The pictures that I remember getting those that day that they came to you the next day after your your burning ceremony out there in the snow. I remember getting those photographs of you, and you were like, it looked like you were laying in a snowbank or something like that with that casted foot up in the air and something. And it was just like such an epic example of that human spirit that I got to see in those children in the Philippines being, exhibited by this woman in the United States who is taking not just health in her own hands, but finding joy and laughter in the moment. Like you could feel the hilarity of the moment. You could feel the laughter that was happening in the backyard that night. You could feel the commitment that your husband had to building the bonfire in the snow, and the neighbors and the community that came around you just to make this seemingly simple thing. That's how my whole life is, by the way. I come up with a simple idea in my head, and then it takes huge amount of talent and skill sets of all kinds of people I never imagined to go actually do that seemingly simple thing. But you did it with such joy and such wonderful community around you that it exemplified the whole journey, I feel like, in that one night. So thank you for that. Thank you for your stick-to-itiveness. Thank you for knowing that your path would cross with mine again. And we're so glad you're part of the future coaches of Intrinsic Health out there. When you go through the coaching program, you have that certification. It's not a de novo course, so you need to have an IFN or one of the other coaching. I think I have the wrong acronym there. One of the other coaching international programs under your belt, which are typically a few months in length, something like that. And then this is a continuing education course that would then add on the Journey of Intrinsic Health qualifications there to your education. And that's something you can take with you into your own practice. It's something that you don't have to do with our program. Ultimately, it's something that really you carry forward then all of this information with you into whatever modality, whether you work for other clinics or other settings. So the coach's journey is really something of your own to carry with you as an educational spark within you at that point. But we're also looking to build out our coaching program over time as well, and bring more coaches to help us with Journey of Intrinsic Health that Susan Teton and Gary were talking about with their experiences. So I want to turn a little bit to Q&A here and let you guys throw some questions at us if you have them there. I think I've got some coming through here. So when the thoughts here are kind of just a quick overview of the program itself. I'm going to give a quick thought on the 8-point journey, and then I want to turn to Marlene. Marlene is our community director for Journey of Intrinsic Health, and she has been really instrumental in helping build out the infrastructure for you all to participate with our own teams and being connected to more information and dealing with incoming questions and quality improvements for the program. But also fostering the events every week among the community and watching those stories come forth. So actually, Marlene, why don't you jump in with that, and then I'll circle back on the 8 points, but this feels like a good transition moment for you to come forward to give us little insights on that.
Sure thing. Thank you so much, Zach. And thank you so much to our wonderful panelists. And if you were at all thinking that this is a place that you need to be, trust me, all the light beings in the world have come together in this community, and it will blow your mind. The content is amazing. Just wait until you start integrating it with these other people who are just some of the most passionate, deeply connected, deeply committed, vulnerable people. And the shares that you've heard happen weekly, and it happens in community. And as Zach lovingly says, and Courtney highlighted too, you can't heal in isolation. And I think the one huge thing that has brought so many of us together, and thank you so much, Zach, for your being the great lighthouse, right, that just attracted all of us in these seemingly darker times, and we feel more disconnected from ourselves, from each other than ever before. And I think one of the greatest gifts that not only I have the honor of observing and being a part of every single moment of every day is just people don't feel alone anymore. They have found like-minded folks to say, I'm scared, I'm hurting, I've tried this doesn't work. What about that? I'm curious about this. And the information is one thing, and then what the community part of the Journey of Intrinsic Health does is allow you to integrate that. So we are building out all sorts of amazing workshops. And Susan is going to actually be one of our guests, little preview of coming attractions. She's going to host a how do you become a plant-based eater cooking school. How about that? Okay. And today we heard from nurse practitioner who's practiced with Zach in the clinic for 4 years, Lisa Goldstein, who led us on a live fasting workshop. You know, why we fast, when do we fast, what are some of the things to prepare for? And we are going to be doing, whoever wants to join us in the journey is going to be doing a group fast in May around the full moon. So there's another preview. We've got a how do you properly breathe for ultimate health workshop coming up. We've got an innovation lab and business accelerator group. So people who are taking the 8 tenets and bringing it into the world. I get goosebumps. We're all there talking about how to support one another. How do you get money? How do you get collateral partners? All of those things. I mean, it's so much fun and there's so much going on. And I'm telling you, we are just getting started. So come one, come all, join us. We would love to have your wisdom, your light, and your love. And trust me, you will get it 100-fold. So hope to see you in the community.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Marlene. I think what you guys are starting to sense is this is not your typical self-help experience. You know, like, here's your prescription for wellness. And, you know, I think this is being reflected in some of these questions. Question for you, Gary, that came through. The question is, are you feeling totally internally at peace at this point? And if so, why are you still seeking with the regular meetings every week? What are you getting out of that? And so I think people are curious about what draws you into another 90-minute session with the same group week in and like, what the heck are you drilling down on, man?
Well, that's a pretty good question. Yeah, so this is the dichotomy that I've been experiencing maybe my whole life is I view myself, at my age, being a really healthy human being where the system is telling me I'm not. So doubt gets created. And if I decide to partake of it, when I entered the first week in the coaching group, I was full of doubts and, all this noise. So my pillars of health that I've been following for so many years were kind of shaky. And I, like I said, we all need to be reaffirmed in what we believe. And also we need to learn and grow as we go. So, yeah, the reason I keep coming back every Monday in our group meeting is because I got 6 partners in there that are coming too. I'm not going to let them down. And I'm the one that's recording the videos and putting them up for the group. So it's a little bit of a responsibility for me, which I partake in very joyfully. And that just a consciousness. So my mission in life, my big why is to fill up my heart every day with joy, love, and happiness. And that's not something I can do on my own. I need people around me to connect with. Sometimes they're helping me to be a little more joyful than I am. And sometimes I'm able to give that affirmation to someone else. So, yeah, I don't know. This is a family. It's a family affair. Does that answer the question? I hope.
I think it does. Yeah. For those of you kind of wondering about, why community around health, I think we've really shrunk our definition of health down to a very small thing in Western culture. And so we've come to see health as normal blood pressure, normal body weight, good sleep quality. And so we have these very basic metrics. But Gary, every time I hear you or Susan Teton or Courtney speaking, you can feel in each of you this spark of passion of I'm freaking alive right now. And that's the health that the whole Western medical paradigm, we're now spending, $3.9 trillion a year on disease management, none of which creates that spark of life, none of which supports or fosters that. So for all of you listening, you're like, what the hell are these people? What Kool-Aid did Zach make them drink? It's literally that recognition that within each of you is this crazy spark of life that once touched can't be put back out, and you can't go backwards after the 8-week journey. I guarantee you this course, if you will even halfway apply yourself to the information, and when I say information, it's the stuff between my words, the stuff coming out of you to be reflected back at you in this coaching journey. If you dare to look at yourself for a moment, you will be forever changed. And it is one of the most courageous things that you will ever do, is to decide to look at yourself through these new lenses, because it's often overwhelming at moments to take a look and be like, damn, I thought I was on for 5 decades. I thought I was doing all the right things. And I had no freaking, I was shooting so low for 5 decades, you know? And so to readjust that trajectory, like you said, Gary, like how do you measure that value of a course that changes the trajectory of your life? And I want to emphasize, it's not me changing your trajectory, it's each of you choosing to courageously change your direction. And so, Courtney, I would love for you to reflect on this other question that came through that's kind of related to this is, you know, I have a condition, there, or this condition or this condition. Will you help me treat this condition? What was your journey into thinking, you know, I've got this autoimmune state and I need answers to that. What was your journey to finding the intrinsic quality of the course?
Well, I think first was the belief. I believed that I would resolve it. So starting with the belief inside me, and just that belief of who am I? Whatever I did to get here is I probably, you know, have created or somehow came into my life on purpose. So taking the suffering and the pain and turning that into a belief that it will resolve, and clearing the path and using the tools, using the breath work, using the mindset. You know, we're 70 trillion cells of this gel-like state of water. And what am I telling myself all day? So I used to, you know, I remember not being able to walk, and it was difficult. And the thoughts that I was telling my gel state of water were not good. So there's a reprogramming, a new belief system that's born. And then we all have our journeys. And so, you know, for me, I had to, you know, deal with some traumas and, you know, childhood stuff. You know, you want to free up all that space. And then we look into the environmental inputs, you know, is the water clean? Is the food clean? You know, I was a chef using canola oil, cooking with, you know, kind of just, it wasn't the cleanest way, you know, but it was how I was, you know, raised with this heavy French food and all that, but rethinking food as fuel. And so it was tiny little decisions over time. If somebody handed me a list in the beginning, go do all these things, I would have ran the other way, but it's a journey. So you just start to take little steps. And I really think the first place to start is the belief. What are you telling yourself? What is your I am statement? And every day, even though I couldn't walk and life was really hard, I would say every day I'm healed and I'm getting, you know, better and better. Every day I'm healed and I'm getting better and better. And it just kept moving in that direction. And it's not always easy, you know, I mean, but it's that hope. And that's what I want to bring to everyone here that is going through those difficult times, that there is hope and there is a way out. We weren't put here to not be able to heal. You can heal. And it takes a lot. I think sometimes we think it's just food and movement only, because I, as a health coach, work with a lot of people, and in similar towns, like you're saying, in rural Virginia, you know, I'm working with people in Texas, and it just, there's some communities where it's hard to access clean food and all of that, but it's not just food. It's all these 8 points. It's breathing. It's who you believe you are. It's showing up on purpose. And sometimes, you told a story one time, Zach, of a woman that drove to work the same way. She pattern interrupt, got rid of, I think it was her brain cancer or some type of a cancer, and then went straight back to that same life, straight back. And then it wasn't a positive outcome. So sometimes these pattern interrupts, they need to be big and they're scary, you know, but sometimes you really need to pattern interrupt in a big way.
That's a beautiful one. I like the words pattern interrupt. That's a great look at what the path to transformation looks like. You know, related to that, Susan, I'm wondering if you can jump in, you know, you and Gary and Courtney, all with backgrounds in health coaching and the like, but how has this course changed your practice as a health coach? You can unmute for us there.
I'll just say one thing really quickly, and then turn it over to Susan.
Yeah.
I came in with these fears about my own body and my health, but I found that I was really asking the wrong questions. These were not, how do I fix this number? That's not it. That's not it at all. Just discovering the source is here. The I am is here, and really rediscovering the joy of health. Rather than taking things for granted, being thankful every day, and just learning that we are a miracle. I mean, so basically you kind of described it a little bit, but the diagnoses went in the burn letter and it's gone, like that we're healthy, let's celebrate what's good, what's working. So
I love that. I love that. Susan, what are your thoughts on your career there?
Well, I think first of all, I have an enhanced ability to express the language that I spoke about earlier. This, the value of our frequency and the way we're believing and thinking. And so when I've adopted a new language, that I'm still looking at how to express it, because I just finished the course a couple of months ago. So I have a much broader confidence in how to lay it out and to give the person that I'm working with one-on-one their own power. Because maybe, I don't think that I said it earlier, but when one of the personal reasons, when I was asked the question, why did you take this course? Well, I just wanted to, but then I had to really look inside and say, okay, what did I need personally? And I realized that I had lost my power. I had lost an element of my own power. And not just because of myself personally in my own life, but what's going on in the collective right now is a little bit negative, if anybody's noticed. And it has, I had fallen into it, and I was running around angry and judgmental, more so than I would ever want to be. And I really turned that off. And I have to say thank you, Dr. Zach, because you said in one of your lectures that we can use all of this energy, not to be angry, not to be judgmental, but to turn it toward creating the wellness and the beauty and the purpose and our vitality and the health and the creativity and the playfulness. We can turn that all into that. And I literally changed the channel. And I think that that's the most valuable thing I can bring to all of my clients, because their television is going 90% of the time, and you can't help but it can't help but imprint you and affect you. And there is so much more that we can create. And just like Courtney was saying so beautifully, she just changed your mind. And so I would say that's the key thing. And I think it's the key thing to anybody's healing and recovery as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you for that. So for those of you that haven't gotten a look at the course, content or structure yet, I'll just give you a quick overview. The 8 points that we've distilled down over the many years of practice at our clinic and beyond come down to these 8 segments. The first one being the word be. And we really take a deep look at what is self-identity at the cellular level and what fosters self-identity. And it's a fascinating journey into cellular biology on one hand, but a much more incredible journey, I think, into discovering that you're not biology. You're actually biophysics. You're an energy vibration that's expressed in tissue, in cellular structure. So that B moment is where we begin the 8-week journey, as looking at actually what are you as a self-identified creature, as an organism, what constitutes that. And then we move into flow. And Susan, reflected on this, was maybe the most transformational part for her, is the understanding of what is water and how did we so miss the concept of hydration. And when you look around the blue zones of the world, you realize none of these people living over 100 years drink 8 glasses of water a day. None of them. Like, how did we so miss this reality that water is a much more interesting and intricate living identity than coming out of some tap into a glass and saying, yeah, that's going to end up in my cells. And to find out that water out of the tap can actually dehydrate you is fascinating. It's like, wait, what? Not only were we missing hydration, we didn't realize we were dehydrating ourselves with all this water consumption. And I think of it every time, you know, when I walk into like a yoga studio now and I see all these people bopping around with their big water bottle and they're so pleased with themselves. And there was a great meme going around on social media recently where the woman's just like freaking out on camera. She's freaking out, and the whole thing comes down, she had forgotten her emotional support water bottle that morning at home. And I feel like that's what has become in our head, is like, water is so important that I'm going to have a freaking spasm if I forgot my hydro flask at home today. Like, oh my God, what the hell? And now I'm gonna have to drink somebody else's contaminated water. Like, we're just psychotic over this whole water issue and carrying it around and doing all these things, and it becomes this weird force in our life. And so we do a deep dive on water and what does that mean at the cellular level, and then we move into the realization of fuel can only actually be processed in the body if you have this optimal hydration state at the cellular level. And so all this bickering over vegan versus paleo versus whatever new fad diet coming out, eat like a gorilla, eat like, there's all these theories on nutrition that are also completely missing the mark, because everybody forgot that all we're talking about is actually light energy, and that's the interaction between your plate of food and this spiritual identity that you are, which is this vibrational light being. And so looking at food at that like psycho-spiritual interface of biology with physics and how that happens, and then going into this whole concept of breathing and the understanding of the way in which respiration is actually the output of this energetic transmutation of carbon force into life force as you breathe the fuel that you take in. And so it's this beautiful journey in understanding the cycles of carbon, water, and the like through your body. And we think of respiration as like, oh, I need more oxygen in my tissue. And of course, oxygen is really toxic. It's like one of the most, that's why we call it oxidation. Oxygen tears electrons off of the surface of other things. And that's what causes rusting, you leave a piece of metal out in the air and it falls apart because of the oxygen in the air, not the nitrogen, not the hydrogen. It's the oxygen that's toxic. In the same way, when we grow cells in culture, you can kill them by giving them oxygen. So instead, we have to give them carbon dioxide. You just heard me right. We have to give cells in culture carbon dioxide so that they will survive and grow. And so everything you've learned about respiration is asked backwards, just as your hydration piece was as well. So it's this excitement that I have is, whoa, if you flip everything on your head, like Gary had said that the course does, you start to see the world much differently. And you start to behave differently around these life forces. After the breathe state, we can move into movement with re-understanding this whole concept of exercise, because just as the blue zones don't drink 8 hydro flasks of water again, nobody's going to the gym. Nobody who lives over 100 years old is going to the gym every day. So where'd we go wrong there? And so you start to realize that movement is intrinsic to our biology. It's not an exogenous event that we have to go jump in the car for 45-minute round trip drive to go work out. Like, we've externalized movement, and for that we've lost the beauty of that miraculous thing of being alive. And then finally, this rest concept of like the cycles of life are never grow. That's what the stock market tries to do at the cost and expense of global markets being so unstable, because we believe that everything can grow all the time. There is contraction, and so as Courtney said in her journey, it's not linear. You're going to go through cycles in your healing journey, in your health journey, in your life. You're going to have periods of expansion and contraction, and reinvigorating and re-understanding rest as a concept of foundation of growth helps you really start to repattern the lifestyle that you're living, perhaps most importantly in your own mind. I used to have a frenetic mind. I could not get a moment's rest from my own brain. It drove me freaking bonkers. And I think it was the demise of my ability to be in quality relationship and things like that. I wasn't a good partner to my kids or to my spouse or whatever it was, because I was so frenetically in my head. And my life today is so opposite of that. And I find myself often getting to the end of the day like, did I even have a thought today? I don't even know if I thought about anything. I'm useless. I'm not even doing anything. And yet I find myself being far more effective now in my life than I was when I had the frenetic busyness in my head. And so rest is not just about sleep. It's really about this deeper pattern of life existence where you come into a new understanding of who you are. After this, we get into what I would argue is my very favorite, two pieces of the puzzle, which is connection. And so the connect is the seventh piece of the journey there. And connect is really this experience of interwoven reality of anybody in isolation is in misery. And we've done this with solitary confinement and the like and all this, but we have to express ourselves once discovered, or we continue to suffer. And so just reaching step one, which is to be, is not adequate to be in joy. You have to be in community. And I think there's an opportunity for us to rethink community on a grand scale in this country, particularly perhaps, but certainly globally, an opportunity here. How do we build massive social systems where 7.9 billion souls learn to interact in synergistic fashions that heighten the vibration of each of us, instead of the typical try to knock each other down lower so that we feel good about ourselves? There's a different way to do social interactions. There's different ways to do relationship on every scale, with our children, with our spouses, with our life partners, whoever you're going to choose. That reality needs to change just as fundamentally as we need to change our concept of hydration. And so the course ultimately gets you to the state of connection. But my favorite one, I'm doing these a little bit out of sequence because I wanted to jive a little bit here today. But my favorite one that I think, I'm now finally diving deep into in my own personal life is play. We have to understand what it feels like to be a child. And if you have lost that childlike experience of being alive today, then you're missing an opportunity, because life is a miracle. The fact that you're here listening to this at all is a miracle. You are a biologic phenomenon. You're an impossible mathematical equation of complexity. And yet here you are again today to participate in this playful experience of being human today. So this is why we're all here together, is go on that 8-point journey and have that experience. And so I want to be respectful of people's time, and so feel free to jump off. But I thought I would conclude us here with a little bit of sense of where I've gotten in my life over the last 10 years in applying these tenets of the 8 points over time. Because you've got people on here that are already changing their lives just in a few short weeks after the course is completed, and still in the course, and yet changing their lives already. What does that look like when extrapolated over a 10-year journey? And for me, that's looked like, becoming a generative center of my own reality. And when I was at the University of Virginia, I was unknown. I was in a faculty of 1,200 just in the Department of Medicine, lost in tens of thousands of faculty across multiple campuses and all of this. And I was a cog in the machine. I was at the very bottom of a ladder that I was told, oh, no, your career's so great, you're going to get to climb this ladder for the next 40 years. And then we're going to call you a tenured professor. And you will be completely alone still, and you will be in competition over scarcity of resources with the same people that you've been climbing that ladder with for 40 years. But it will be great. It'll be really good. And so be peaceful. And, I had been through decades of education and all this stuff. I had almost $200,000 of school debt, and I was making less than a McDonald's manager. And the message was like, it's okay. $70,000 is enough for you to raise your kids and do this and that. And $70,000 is actually a lot of money to be making, unless you have $200,000 debt and your kids are starting college and you're doing all this stuff. And then suddenly you're like, wow, I'm never going to get out of debt. And I don't even know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so I had slipped into major depression and didn't know who I was or why I was doing what I was doing. Fast forward with applying, the tenets of what we learn in this course together. And my reality is something that is akin to magic. And this bizarrely closes the loop on my own education, is that as a Spanish major, there was 2 branches of Spanish. You could be Spanish literature, or you could be like Spanish business kind of track. And so I wanted Spanish literature because I loved the poetic nature of the romantic languages, and I had this weird romantic within me that was really drawn to the ability to write better love notes, I think, and things like this. And so I loved being able to say that your face is like the rising sun in the morning, and it sounds so good in Spanish. La sonrisa de las caras como el amanecer, and you get into this whole thing and you can feel the guttural thing. And I felt like a gypsy half the time. I love southern Spain, and I was like, loved that stuff. And so I got into magic realism through that space. And Cien Años de Soledad was the thesis that I wrote for my graduation project there at the University of Colorado. And magic realism is a whole sect or of, genre, if you will, of literature that looks at the ability of the mind to create its own reality. And 100 Years of Solitude, or Cien Años de Soledad, is this extraordinary, piece of literature that looks at the collision of a scientific generative society colliding with the realities of miracles that happen all around us all the time, and this weird kind of suspended belief system that collides with and seems in contrast to the very mechanical nature of our society around us. And it's a real stark look at those contrasts. And I feel like I've gotten to do that whole 100 Years of Solitude journey through academic medicine to find myself into magic realism. That is my life now. And the magic of the realism is finding out that the reality is the capacity to dream magically. To become a generator of your reality is a really powerful thing. And it happens through the 8 points. Bizarrely, hydration and the fuel and the respiration and the movement and the connection and the playfulness, all of this is what makes you capable of rising to that buzzing state of existence where you feel electric and you are a magnetic field and you pull in all of the right connections every day that you don't even know what they need to be, but all you know is you are alive and you're ready to play. And what I have found is the universe seems to be really ready to play with humans, and the universe wants to jump in and probably already has this vast playground set up for you to jump into. And you're the one sitting in the corner of the playground being like, I wish I could play. I wish life was fun. I wish I wasn't in such drudgery. Why am I even here? And there's all these kids out there on the playground freaking having a ball, and you're sitting there miserable in the corner wondering why your life is the way it is. This is about igniting your journey onto that playground. And when you do that, you become a source of energy. And it is not human energy. What I find myself doing day in and day out now in my meditations and mindfulness journey is learning how to connect to the feminine and masculine divine. And divine, can be, described as God, or it can be described as nature. You pick your paradigm you want, but this source of life that is greater than yourself as a biologic body is waiting to course through your veins, is waiting to ignite your heart. And that's what Gary is on the journey of doing, going from understanding his bloodstream as a carrier of triglycerides to a journey of understanding his bloodstream being the channels of the divine creativity within him, and then being able to express that in community. And that's what's happened to me. And so I started, with a group of incredible colleagues a few years ago, I guess it was like 8 years ago now, Seraphic Group, which is an innovation hub for the future. And our grand goal is to bring balance to the biome. And our mission is is changed to an invitation. And our invitation is for humanity to come into coherence with nature. And that is our passion point as a company now. And we've spawned a bunch of subsidiary companies that are all in incubation phase, some of them coming to market around these products or concepts that are there not to make billions of dollars, but are there to fundamentally change the way these industries think about themselves. So we have an oil and gas company creating biofuel out of plastics and tires that we've been working on for 7 years. We've got a software company. We have global macroeconomic structures. We've got nonprofits that have spawned out of this. If you're not familiar with Farmers Footprint and our work at our 501c3 Project Biome, you can take a look at that, projectbiome.org or farmersfootprint.us, and look at the incredible genius that's come from that team that became magnetized to that. And what I'm finding is I don't have to do anything. I need to have joyful desire to play with others who are in their dharma, are in their sense of purpose, to go realize something fantastic. And so if I just have enthusiasm and a playful spirit about working with others, I find that it's not my doing that creates it. It's the being me that brings the other people who want to be with me. And just by hanging out, stuff happens. Just by hanging out and being us, and most of the time seemingly freaking goofing off, tackling each other in the hallways with giant hugs or playing pranks on each other, this office is a ludicrous place to be. And our chief strategy officer is what we call him, but he is like #1 goofball guy, and he was actually just on Journey of Intrinsic Health, I think a couple weeks ago. We had Jeffrey Brand on to talk to the group about building conscious community and companies and all of this. And Jeffrey's been with me since day one of Seraphic Group, and it's been such a funny journey for us because we feel like two kids who are completely goofing off all of the time now. And we do this in every state of the union. It feels like goofing off somewhere, doing some project or other. And we just laugh all the time that evening after some big new milestone happens or whatever. Just like, dude, it actually happened. Can you freaking believe that actually happened? Because I don't think we've done anything. Like, how did it even happen? And we sit there musing over it. And that's the magic realism I want you all to be able to tap into. You don't have to go fix the world. The world is the result of people not being connected and losing their capacity for creativity, their spark of curiosity. And so the world is as it is, not because it sucks, but because it hasn't woken up. And so we can write ourselves a giant permission slip for the human journey to date. We don't need polarizing fear or hatred towards everything I hear in a day from my kind of seeming community of like, Zach, how can you even think of the word Gates Foundation without just spitting anger? How can you must hate Dr. Fauci so much? What? No, that's the human journey right there. I wouldn't be here without a Dr. Fauci doing what he's doing, because I wouldn't have the insights that I have if it wasn't reflected off of that human being that's exerting himself in the way that he's exerting himself. So we just get to write this massive permission slip to say, what a ludicrous, hilarious human journey we've had together. And the cosmic joke is we think it was a human journey. We think it was a bunch of these meat suits running around doing things that were bad or doing things that were good and altruistic. And boy, Gary was so good because he was on the mission field for all those long. And oh my gosh, those guys are really bad because they're oil and gas guys, or those are chemical farmers and they're the enemy. We're all freaking meat suits that are being animated by light beings that are here to try to raise the vibration of a planet. And so the cosmic joke is we get into these human constructs of polarity, forgetting that we're all on the same team. We are all here to express ourselves and more vibrantly, and we can't do that in a polarized, disconnected world. And that's what's being expressed on your Instagram or your other places. That's a polarized, disconnected world that has an artifice or a facade of connectivity. When we really become connected, you will keep going to the Monday 90-minute meeting because that's the most connected moment of your week, because those people are all on right now and they are being themselves. And you're so curious to see who did what this past week. And that gets to be what our company starts to feel like. I get to be on the road all the time, and I'm always so curious to get back to the office every couple of weeks to be like, what's gone on in this petri dish since I was gone? And we have a big clinical laboratory here and basic science laboratory. So sometimes it literally is a petri dish that I'm staring into to blow my mind. But oftentimes it's a big engineering project or software development or whatever's going on. And I just can't express to you enough the joy that I have that you guys are with us for this hour and a half. So thank you for your time. Susan Teton, Gary, Courtney, you guys have been phenomenal as our members of our vibrant community. And I'm so excited to see what continues to spark out of you and your growing communities around you as you guys are being and less doing and more doing the magic creativity around you. But I'll give you guys all an opportunity to say goodbye to the crowd around us. And we'll look forward to everybody who's been jumping on here over the last hour and a half, 850 of you actively joining, and it'll be recorded and go out to tens of thousands of others. So all of you joining in, whether today or in the future, we can't wait to have you part of this joyful, playful, and sometimes completely goofy community. But we are honoring who you are and how you got to being where you are. We have Journey of Intrinsic Health, and there's both the group immersion experience where you're going through with 6 to 8 people with a coach every week, or there's the ultimate experience where you're one-on-one with that coach for an 8-week period. And then we also have the coach's journey, which is it for all of you who are certified health coaches and life coaches out there. We have a continuing education program that gets you certified as an intrinsic health coach. You can jump into that as well. So take a look at the website, journeyofintrinsichealth.com will get you there. And we look forward to being part of your future. Thank you, Esty, for being behind the scenes, making all this work. Thank you, Mary. for being there. Marlene, so grateful for you and all your coordination of this extraordinary community. And feel free to take yourselves off of mute and give a good hello to the whole global community here.
Yay, thank you for everyone.
Love you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Come play with
Join
us. We have more fun than anyone. You need to come check it out.
We have so much fun. You'll get rid of all your social media, except you'll just have the journey of intrinsic health on your phone. It's a community of love. It's so beautiful. Big hugs to everyone.
Yes,
It does.
love, big hugs to wherever you are in the world.
Air hugs.
Gary, coming at you.
Aloha, everyone. Come join us.